This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
Hi, I'm Steven, and this is Darien, King of Kjeldor. Alright, so this is Darien, King of Kjeldor. This is a suicide white deck. I'm not typically a white player, but I like the idea of killing myself in the process. I'm pretty much always guaranteed a pretty short game with this deck. Either I'm going to kill myself or I'm going to wipe out the board with soldiers here. So Darien, he's a 3/3 on 6. Whenever you're dealt damage, you may put that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens into play. And that is the core of the deck. It is a build around top down with Darien in mind. So let's get into it. I got 18 planes, and then jump right to the backbone of the deck. These are all the mana producers that are going to hurt me and just generate my tokens for me. Because Darien, you can't count on your opponents attacking you. So I got Ancient Tomb. This is probably my favorite of all the lands that can pain you because it gives you the 2 mana for 2. It's pretty much the ideal ramp and damage package. Tarnished Citadel, pretty terrible all around, but perfect for this deck. Taps for 3 damage for a mana of any color, so that's 3 soldiers just by activating it. Grand Coliseum deals 1 damage to you, which is alright. So then with Nomad Stadium, probably never going to use the threshold to gain life here, just pretty much going to tap and hurt myself with it. And then we got a couple other mana producers in the artifacts here. Mana Crypt, it gives you the flip for the 3 damage at the beginning of your upkeep. That's huge, helps get Darien out fast and get your soldiers started. And then Mana Vault also gets you for an early Darien, and then the pain starts right away, and you can start building your token army. To keep going with the lands here, Vesuva likes to copy those pain lands. It's another way of getting utility out of them. Same thing with Thespian Stage, just another copy effect. You want to get more and more of that pain. Really generating the land pain bait is the total backbone of the deck. You got to get it started early and often. Deserted Temple pretty much rebuys any effect. Cjeldoran Outpost, this just puts a soldier right into play. You also get a sacrifice of planes when it comes into play. That's pretty relevant with Withering Wayfarer and land tax. I kind of really like this card in the mix. Plus good to copy later on. Another way of making tokens. High Market, Sack Outlet, that's going to be important. The life gain, I try to keep this to about a very minimal life gain. I really want to go straight down as fast as I can, but there's a few choice life gain cards. High Market's in here mainly for the sack effect, but it can keep you alive if you're on the critical. Cavern of Souls, usually always set to humans. You want to make sure Darien gets out. A lot of other humans in the deck. Windbrisk Heights, this is going to trigger quite a bit with the Hideaway. So, good one in the soldiers. Contested War Zone, also a great way to get pump out of your land base. Kind of dangerous playing with this one, but usually you drop it kind of later on after everything else is established. Urborg is in here, and since it doesn't have a black mana symbol, it makes everything else a swamp, you can play it. Urborg kind of lets you have an alternate out with those pain lands like Ancient Tomb. If you don't have Darien going, you can tap them for just 1. Maze of Ith, you can tap for mana all of a sudden. Mainly though, Urborg's in here for the karma, and we'll get to that. 1-man land, Forbidden Watchtower, turns into a soldier, pretty defensive, I like it. Mistveil Plains, not a lot of graveyard shenanigans or recursion or anything like that, but it counts as a plane, so add it in there, way of recycling some things in my deck. Eiganjo, this can protect Darien a little bit, a couple other legends in here, so you can just prevent a little bit of damage. Why not? New Benalia gives you a scry. Flagstones, pretty straightforward. Emeria, you can go late game and get the 7 planes, and then this can get online for you. Kor Haven, this is along with Maze of Ith, my 2 prevent damage. This deck kind of is very unsavory to attack later on. Usually Darien makes you kind of ward off, but also have ways of preventing it. Usually this deck is not going to get attacked too much. So and there's Maze, you got to prevent those one-shot Voltron generals from getting in. And then continuing with the rest of my mana ramp here. Soul Ring, Pro Medallion, makes my white cost a little less. There's that land tax. It wasn't in here originally, but I just kept missing some drops, so it's kind of nice. Can't really beat that effect. And then Withered Wayfarer, he is the all-star. You get him out early, he's going to get all those juicy little pain lands for you and really get us started. He's the best one-drop in the deck for sure. Expedition map, that'll find you one of them at least. Night of the White Orchid, if you're behind the land count, you can search up a plains, which is pretty cool. Solemn Simulacrum just gets that plains. A lot of this deck doesn't really come online until you get to 6 mana, so you really got to get there as quick as you can, and then you're playing the game. Thran Dynamo jumps you up. Gauntlet of Power, usually set to white. This one's awesome because it gives the pump also. There's kind of few slots for the pump only, so when you can get the pump and the land doubling of that and Cage Sun, that's great. And then there's a mini tap down theme to the deck. There's a couple cards where the synergy just works really well. It all starts with Blind Obedience. You get the Extort. It's a little bit of life gain back too. It's one of the few life gain cards I got in there. Extort's real good in the multiplayer, so it's good. Once you get them tapped down, Meekstone usually will keep them tapped down. All of my creatures will duck underneath a Meekstone. Later on they could pump and get bigger, but usually I'm either going to Alpha Strike with so much pump they can't handle it, or this is just going to give big problems for their generals. Along with Meekstone, we got Crackdown, the non-white version enchantment of a Meekstone. Just as good. Court Street Denizen, when you can tap your lands and throw creatures into play, instant speed, you can get tap all around the board. Plus she's early action. I like a lot of early action in here. So yeah, Court Street Denizen's pretty good. And then Angel's Trumpet. This card is the tech for Darien. Attacking does not cause creatures to tap. And at the end of each player's turn, tap all untapped creatures they control that did not attack this turn, and Angel's Trumpet deals 1 damage to that player for each creature tapped this way. So your creatures coming into play will still tap and deal damage to you. With this and Darien out, you can effectively double your creature count each turn. You can just choose not to attack, tap all your creatures, and then get that many soldiers. And then your opponent either has to attack into your soldier horde or tap down his creatures. And any blockers he drops out are going to tap and hurt him as well. And then, yeah, when it gets back around to you, you vigilance and just swarm the board with all those guys. So you can choose how much pain you want to take really each turn, and you can scale it real well. This card is just the best. And then finishing out the tap out is Yosei. Not many ways to win with this deck other than the red zone. You pretty much got to get in there. So I do have a couple ways to Yosei lock people. You want to get that blue mage with the Yosei lock sometimes. It's going to be the only way you're going to finish him off. So I'll have some ways of recurring him later on. Spawning Pit, good way to sack Yosei. Good way to sack all the creatures. You can just sack a creature, charge it up, remove 2 charge counters, get a 1/1 spawn. Usually they're 1/1 soldiers coming out as 2/2 artifacts. So not a bad deal. Sack outlet's really nice in Commander. And then Sculpting Steel. Kind of get into the artifacts here. I got some heavy costed artifacts, so you know, like Cage Sun, Sculpting Steel is good to buy a second one of those at cheap mana. And then Skull Clamp for card draw. Clamp away as many tokens as you need. Try not to do that too much. You mainly just want to keep drawing, get your land big. Slate of Ancestry, much stronger here for the card draw. Discard your hand and draw a card for each creature you control. So later on, this will just go bonkers. You'll be picking up 20 cards at a time. Staff of Nin, I like this card. Gives you an extra card each turn, and then you can tap for a damage to creature player. So it's fun to copy. You can shoot yourself and get the token out of it, or you can just, you know, ping a couple guys on the board. It's good. Tuano's Coffin. This card is so ridiculous in EDH. You pretty much tap 3 and tap it, and you remove a creature into a special in the coffin zone. It keeps all his enchantments and counters, and then during your upkeep, if you untap it, that creature comes back into play, and you can choose not to untap it. So this is going to do so much dual action here. I don't have much targeted removal, so Tuano's Coffin can take away problem creatures when I need to. You can tuck a general underneath it, and then when you tuck a general, they have to choose either to go back to the command zone or stay in the box. So, and if they're in the box, you get to choose when he gets it back. And you can just wait till you get a Wrath effect and then throw it back at him. So this card's so great. It'll save Darien when some other kind of destruction's coming his way, and then you can pull him back out. You can rebuy come into play effects. Tuano's Coffin is the card. Eldrazi Monument. Best way to keep your general around, I've found, is either go indestructible or just have so much land you get to keep playing him back out. So I'm trying to get him indestructible a couple of different ways. Eldrazi Monument is the best. It gives the creature pump, flying, and indestructible to all my creatures. So yeah, this just makes the whole horde an army. Rest in Peace, just kind of an odd graveyard removal card in here. I'm recurring a little bit from the graveyard, but I'm more worried about other players, green and black players, things like that. So Rest in Peace just kind of evens that part of the board. Gift of Immortality, this one's new, but when a creature dies, you return to the field, and then Gift comes back at the beginning of the end step, which is pretty awesome. There's mainly 3 creatures you want to gift. That's going to be Darien himself, just to keep him out there. Yosei is another great one. You can buy the Yosei lock real easy with a high market and a gift, or Academy Rector. You can just keep sacking her out and grabbing all the enchantments. So, Gift of Immortality. Karma, there it is. During each player's upkeep, Karma deals 1 damage for each swamp they control. So with your Urborg and all the other Urborgs out there, this is usually hidden. I mean, I have Academy Rector in here just to grab this card more and more. I really like karming out people. It's a good way to kill yourself and everyone. It just gets the murder clock started. Sacred Mesa. So this makes birds. You got to sack 1 each upkeep, or Pegasuses. It's kind of like the Darien altar enchantment. It's kind of late game only. You're really going to drop it. It's just another way of just generating lots and lots of creatures. Dump all your mana into it. So, Marshal's Anthem, kind of nice in the late game also. Gives you a pump. Creatures get +1/+1, and then you can multi-kicker it as many times as you want and return that many creatures. So normally, like, multi-kickering it twice, getting 2 guys back and getting all your creatures to pump. It's just a good card. Crescendo of War. This is the first of the crazy kind of pump slots here. During each player's upkeep, you put a strife counter on it. Attacking creatures get +1/+0 for each strife counter, and my blocking creatures get +1/+0 for each strife counter. So when this hits the board and the multiplayer comes back around you, all your guys already get +4/+0. So this card is absolute fire, and you got to be careful playing with that because I've been burned by it before. Cathar's Crusade is the other ridiculous pump spell. It's an enchantment which is nice, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield you control, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So right away, things just get out of hand. I'm sure you guys know. Spectral Procession. First sorcery that throws some tokens out. I like some early action. I like this fly. It's just good cost for some quick tokens. Conqueror's Pledge. I got no problem dropping this on turn 5. Like, a lot of my stuff's so much later. I like to get that early pressure started. But then if you got later in the game, you can kicker it and get twice the tokens. Increase in Devotion, probably a little bit better for that. Gets those early tokens on 5, and then you can flash back it later for a whole 10. And then Nomads Assembly. This is the card that is absolutely insane for token generation. It doubles your count right as you cast it, and then it's going to rebound the next turn. So this is where there's just gobs and gobs of soldiers out. Elspeth Terrell, she's the first of the 2 Elspeths I got in here. Mainly she's going to generate the tokens. She's one of the few life gain cards, and she actually can gain quite a bit of life. So it's not that bad. I try not to use the life too much, but I like her to destroy all permanents except for non-land or except for lands and tokens. That's a good wipeout effect. Elspeth Sun's Champion. She kind of starts the rest of the Wrath package here. This actually was a Redemption of the Meek, which is her -3 ability. So I'll take the upgrade with the rest of her modes as well. And then Hour of Reckoning. All the Wraths in here, there's quite a bit of them, and how it kind of works is you just, like a ladder, climb one Wrath to the next Wrath, and all of them are pretty slanted in your favor. So usually you're going to be the only one kind of with something left after the Wrath wipes it out, and then you just kind of ride that to the victory. Hour of Reckoning destroys all non-tokens, so you can have Darien, hopefully he's indestructible, or just cast him again next time and leave the rest of the army alone. Officer Command, awesome. You can set to any mode you want, get rid of artifacts, enchantments. I have not that much artifact and enchantment hate in here, probably need some more, but this does a good job of wiping those out, and you can leave your little creatures and wipe out the big ones. Sunblast Angel kind of goes along with the tap-down theme. Those tap creatures you can just wipe out. Yeah, very one-sided. Phyrexian Rebirth destroys all creatures, and you get an XX artifact horde equal to the creatures destroyed this way. So lots of creatures, makes a big token. This is usually kind of a bad card because I don't have very many appetizing creatures to steal or copy or clone, but when I get a big 20-20, 40-40, something like that, suddenly I do. Marge of Souls. This kind of upgrades all my creatures. Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. For each creature destroyed this way, you get a 1/1 flying spirit. So yeah, it just kind of makes all my guys jump into the air, and everybody else gets a couple spirits out of it. Marshal's Coup. Also, one-sided Wrath, you get to put soldiers into play if it's 5 or more, and then destroy everything else. So, gets you started and wipes them out. And then here's the rest of the creatures in the deck. Precinct Captain, he is awesome early. He just gets the party started. Most people are not ready to deal with a 2/2 first striker right away. So, Machias, I really like playing him out on turn 2 just for 1 mana. I got so much other stuff kind of building up in those first turns. He just sits on the board and takes care of himself, gets bigger, and then throws his counter around on your creatures. He's good pump. And then plus he kind of sucks up a lot of early hate, targeted removal, stuff like that. People get scared of him. So, Machias is in there. Suture Priest. This is the only one of the Soul Warden type creatures I've run in here. Whenever a creature comes into play under your control, you gain a life. Whenever an opponent gets a creature into play, they lose a life. So with her and Darien out, you're pretty much indestructible. All damage dealt to you is turned into 1/1 creatures, which then gain you that much life back. So she kind of just lets you just run crazy with your damaged artifacts and lands and stuff. And then at the same time, she's hurting your opponents for everything they drop out. She's awesome. Mentor of the Meek, ridiculous card advantage engine in this deck. Whenever another creature 2 or less comes to the battlefield, you can pay 1 and draw a card. So you can tap Ancient Tomb, make 2 guys, take 2 mana, and turn them into 2 cards. Awesome stuff. Knight Captain of Eos. There's some better token generating creatures at about 5 and 6. But I chose him. I like his fog effect. You can sack a soldier to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Another way that you're just really not the right person to attack. You make sure that you kind of endure the game with Knight Captain. So he's great. Geist-Honored Monk. She's usually going to be the biggest creature on the board when she hits. I like that she gives you spirit tokens that fly. But her power type is equal number of creatures you control. So usually she's just a big vigilance monster. Hero of Bladehold. She cries a lot and gives you tokens. Good early action. There's Academy Rector. Again, I just really want to hit Karma. But there's other good enchantments to get. Cathar's Crusade when there's nothing else going on. Worldcrawler, he's kind of the other enchantment and artifact suppression I got. He can also hit Planeswalkers. You just pick a permanent, and each upkeep you sack a permanent of that type. So he's kind of doing a couple purposes. And then there's Mere Entity. He is really good. You only cost 3, you can pay X and all your creatures become XX, so the turn you drop him, you can usually make your tokens lethal. Not to mention you can shrink your pumped up guys and duck under a Meekstone if you need to. He's just all around really devastating pump effect. And then there's Krovax Ascendant Hero. I'm running Krovax in here over Elsh Norn. Elsh Norn, as well as a couple other cards like Massacre Worm, are just kind of silver bullets against this deck. And they get stealed or briberied or copied enough that you just don't want to be running one of those against yourself. But he pumps other white creatures +1/+1 and non-white get to -1/-1. So he is never getting stalled or hardly ever going to get copied. You can also pay 2 life to bounce him back to your hand. So again, another way of keeping him on your side and making him survive the wraths and stuff. But more than that, you can use a superhero ability with this. This is a suicide white deck, so you can stack that pay 2 life ability over and over and over, and then do something really twisted like switch life totals with your opponent. So I got Soul Conduit in here and Reverse the Sands. Both of them you can, well, Soul Conduit's a little slower, you can just change 2 players' life totals. Reverse the Sand comes out of nowhere a little better. You can redistribute any number of players' life totals. So with something like Krovax, you just drop yourself down to 2 or 1, and then swap the life, and then swarm them over them. It's a fun way to do it. Egregious Angel, she gives indestructible to a permanent, so she's going to protect Darien. I like having another flyer in here too. Karmic Guide, a little bit of recursion in here. Flying, protection from black is pretty good to have in EDH, but she just brings a creature back. And then finally Rhea Dawnbringer, she's kind of the top end heavy creature here. If you let her stick and they can't deal with her, she can just keep bringing creatures back each turn and take them out. Thanks for watching CMDR decks. Please subscribe and favorite.